Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. If you're listening to this, you are among the privileged elite that gets access to our Patreon specials. Uh, we let the common folk see some of our other discussions on YouTube and you know on other podcasting platforms, but you guys get the real deal. And this month we have something truly special in store for y'all. We are talking about the comic book character who has had the worst luck in terms of cinematic adaptations, even worse than the Hulk, worse than anybody else you can think of. Because there are three Punisher movies, and three out of those three Punisher movies have less than a three on Letterboxd, making them all eligible for our show. And I really wanted to talk about Punisher 2004, and Connor wanted to talk about Punisher Warzone from 2008. And then we decided to toss in the 1989 version starring Dolph Lundgren. Why not?
How generous of us.
Why not, indeed? Anyways, I'm Gabe, your co host, and with me is my illustrious co host. Yeah, how does it feel? Connor. So, Connor, how are you doing today?
Well, yes, I am Connor, aka Dolph Lundgren's eccentric brother, Rolf Lundgren. And man,
Ah, damn, that was.
I'm so happy to be sitting here today. Not so much for the first chapter of this road, but for where this road will inevitably go. Um, let's just say people are going to want to stick around. For now, though, I am very excited to be talking about this, believe it or not. I'm probably the only person on earth excited to talk about this movie, for better and most definitely for worse. This is going to be an interesting one, man. We're going into this. This is kind of different than. I think this is this the first movie we've ever covered on the show that's been direct to video?
So, there is such a weird history behind this movie. So, you call it direct to video, which it was in America, but this was released
Yes.
theatrically around the world.
And it wasn't released in America till what 2 years after it was released overseas. It was released in '89 overseas, and then '91 direct to video
Oh,
in
was
the
it?
United States.
So when we call it 89, America didn't even get to see this movie until years later.
So this is what's interesting. I read some message board stuff that was online. It was just kind of like floating in Google Images somewhere, and it talked about people vividly remembering seeing trailers for this movie before it was supposed to release, with a release date in '89. But I couldn't find any records of this movie being for sale in the United States until 1991. That's the release date that it has for North America on a few different sources, including everybody's favorite Wikipedia. And so this is, I mean, like, this is an interesting movie, first off, and to let everybody know, definitely eligible for our show. A 2.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd and a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes. This is the lowest of the three. The other two movies have the same score of 29%. This one has a 28, just below. Don't know what the odds of that are, but either way, we have to dive into this.
At least it
Um,
wasn't diminishing returns. It was just
yeah,
it just
Eh,
plateaued from the beginning
and
until we got to John Bernthal's version on
yeah,
Netflix.
it's interesting when you look at Letterboxd for like audience reactions, because it's not like tons of people have seen both this film and Warzone. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, both of those films have a much lower amount of people reviewing them than The Punisher from 2004, and rightly so. One of the movies is the lowest grossing film in the history of comic book movies, or at least the Marvel comic book movies, and the other one was not even released theatrically in North America. But you start here at a 2.6, you go to a 2.9 for The Punisher '04, and back down to a 2.7 for Warzone, making this across the board the lowest rated of the Punisher films. We'll see if it deserves that distinction by the end of the episode. But do you have any history with this film at all?
So let's talk not only about this movie, but the history of comic book films, because this movie has such a weird distinction to it. Outside of
Oh boy, it does.
Howard the Duck, the movie, which I really, that's an off brand Marvel
Drawing my
adaptation with big
asterisks.
asterisks, yeah, next to it. This is the first cinematic adaptation of a Marvel superhero ever. Now, it gets complicated because some of the TV shows of Marvel properties, such as The Incredible Hulk and The Amazing Spider Man from the 70s, were turned into movies to be released in certain parts of the world, like Greece
Yeah.
and Turkey.
And there
But
were some weird releases of like a Captain America movie in like the 40s or something, but it's like
well, that
it's
was
often not counted as
that was
it
a
doesn't, yeah.
serial. That was
Right.
there were a lot of comic book serials. Superman,
Yeah,
Batman, Shazam all had serials, but obviously that's not what we are talking about in terms of feature film
exactly.
adaptations.
Yes.
This was the first attempt to bring a Marvel superhero to the big screen. Didn't really go as planned. It was intended to be a theatrical film until the last minute. That's why you have people who remember seeing trailers for it. A very similar thing happened to the infamous Captain America movie with uh,
Yes.
Captain America rubber ears and the really
Oh my
weird
God.
Red Skull, a movie that's infinitely worse than any of the movies in the Punisher lineup, to be sure.
Have
But
you ever seen Red Letter Media talk about that?
oh yeah,
Oh, it's incredible. Anybody
it's
who hasn't seen Red Letter Media talk about that movie, please go watch it. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and those guys make it so much more fun.
they also talk about Supergirl, a movie which I
They
might
do.
recommend for this program because I adore that movie.
Oh,
Don't
well, hey,
question me on that, Connor.
we may
Let me
no. Hey,
be.
look, we may have a future preview of things to come on this show. I'm not gonna judge anything until that day comes. Maybe
Yeah,
I'll judge you in the episode. We'll find out. But
we'll
for
find
now,
out.
for now, I'm not judging shit, man.
So this is basically the really awkward first steps of a baby. You know, it's like, yay, you can do it, but then the baby falls over and it starts crying, and it's like, okay,
Huh.
this is going to take a little bit longer, right? It wouldn't be another 7 years until audiences got Blade and then X-Men and then Spider-Man, and the rest is history, pretty much. But that's the only real appreciation I had for this movie before starting this podcast. I was not a big enough Punisher fan
Yeah.
to seek this out, and my feelings about the Punisher character will get revealed over the course of these discussions.
It's
But
impossible not to come up. Yeah.
well, of course, I mean, that's the context in which we partly have to evaluate these movies. But my history, I was curious. I was a little intrigued, but it wasn't like the Roger Corman Fantastic Four where it's like you hear about it and you have to see this because what could this thing even look like? Like I knew what this movie would be, and I was right. A generic vigilante thriller that could have been produced by Canon Films that, it makes perfect sense why they did The Punisher first in terms of adapting a Marvel property because he's like the cheapest, right? He's one of the few Marvel characters without superpowers. He just relies on guns and bravado. Really nothing that would require, the budget of a Spider-Man movie, right?
Right.
So I just didn't have the interest to check this movie out until this podcast, and I'm curious what your history is.
This is a movie I thought I had seen for years, and I had told people that I had seen and that I didn't remember much about it, but that I don't remember particularly loving it or particularly hating it. And rewatching it for this, well, watching it for the first time for this, I discovered I had not seen this movie. But I also have some history for the people here as well, because this is actually an interesting case study. This movie, because the year that this came out, we had another superhero film, the revered in many ways Batman 1989. Tim Burton's Batman comes
A
out.
little movie called Batman.
A little movie called Batman, a movie that changed the face of comic book films forever. One of the biggest successes of a gamble of all time, came out the same year that a movie that failed to garner support to get to theaters on the other side of the coin. And it's an interesting historical point in time to look at, because you see DC at this point with the release of Batman was one of the most celebrated things, celebrated comic book anything
And they
up
had
until that point.
released Superman, right? That
Yes,
was
and
the
they had released
first
Superman.
big success in
Right,
the world of comic book movies. Superman the movie,
right.
and then Superman 2. So if you're a comic book fan in 1989, you're seeing DC clean a house in their movie adaptations, and Marvel, like their first real attempts to get off the ground, have not just failed, they've failed miserably. You might never think
Oh,
that you're going to get a Spider-Man movie, which, by the way, they were trying to make a Spider-Man movie around this time, and thank God that didn't happen.
phew.
If you want to see some of the concepts that they were drawing up for a Spider-Man movie, if you want to see some of the names attached, they were talking to people like Joseph Zito, Toby Hooper. They wanted to turn Spider-Man into a Spider-Man, which is kind of awesome, but not for the very first adaptation of Spider-Man. So this movie, look, let's just get this out of the way. I have very little in the way to say about this movie, The Punisher, starring Dolph Lundgren.
Which,
But
by the
I
way, is why we have been going so far to tell you history, because this conversation may not be too long. Neither is the movie, by the
it's
way.
the most
That's something that I
interesting.
want to throw
Yeah,
in there. The
yeah.
movie's not super long either. So
God no, it's the shortest, right?
yeah, I think it's like an hour and 30 minutes. It's like this is like the shortest, just least intrusive watch of the entire franchise of these movies. It's the entire three movies that they
Yeah.
made of the Punisher.
So that's why we're giving all this history lesson, because even that is more entertaining to talk about than
Well,
than this
but
movie.
like, looking at how DC films fared back then, like that would continue into the new millennium. You know what I mean? Like Batman and Robin came out just before the end of the 90s in 97, and Blade didn't come out too far around that time period. When did Blade hit
I
the
think that
theaters?
came out in
98?
97,
It was
97,
like
98.
97, 98 time. And even Batman and Robin, which is considered one of the worst comic book movies of all time, um, clean house at the box office compared to the good Marvel movies that were coming out. I think X-Men was really the first time that people really started to take their movies like seriously on a commercial level. Blade was taken seriously by people who liked it and loved it and went and watched it, as it should be. It's a great movie,
It's so
but it
funny
didn't
though.
clean house like the DC movies were.
And a lot of people didn't know that Blade was an adaptation of a Marvel's comic,
Right.
right? Blade wasn't an iconic character from those comics. You would have had to be a super geek to make that connection back when the first Blade came out. And now we can put it in context. But yeah, X-Men is the first real success for Marvel, and it's a pretty modest success. It's more like okay, I think we've more or less figured out what we're doing. We've figured
It's a
out what
starting
not to
point.
do. It's a
Yeah,
starting
it's a
point for
starting
sure.
point. Yeah.
And then again, Spider-Man 2002, that just changes everything. It is a bigger success than,
Yes.
I mean, just in the world of blockbusters. It is
Yeah.
ginormous. It is a game changer, right? And then when you look at the comic book movies that came before, it's like it almost Thanos snapped away most of those shitty movies, because we don't need them even for novelty anymore. We might get good superhero movies.
Dude, and it came out at the perfect time, because this is again right after Batman and Robin critically
Ate
bombed. I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
commercially it did very well, but critically that movie was was fucking plastered. That movie, dude, it's impossible to say that that movie was not destroyed by critics, by just regular viewers. And so that felt like the switching of of everything, the changing of the tides, as they say. And it's just so interesting to see that changeover, because DC, despite having some big success since then with creating what some people say critically is maybe the best made superhero film of all time with The Dark Knight. I don't know that I fall into that conversation, but it's a fantastic movie. Um, and even with those movies and successes along the way, they still really can't catch Marvel at this point. They try, they make a lot of money, they make a lot of money for Warner Brothers, but look at where they are now. I mean, they're sort of in the place that Marvel was at the beginning of the 90s. They're having movies that are failing to get released. They're having movies that are getting mostly completed and then getting canceled. I mean, we're at a really interesting point in time, and that's about the point in time that we're at when The Punisher comes out in '89. And so I want to ask you, you want to start talking about this movie?
I was about to say, as much as I would like to talk about most other comic book movies, but this one, we should probably actually start talking about it. I suppose.
There's a reason we're not that bad and we don't talk about those movies very often. So there's a glimpse into what a podcast could be if we talked about good stuff. But for now, we're talking about the stuff you don't like, and that's why we got to start talking about Punisher '89. But we're gonna be kind at first. You know, we start this show off with some positivity. We always try to be pretty positive. So, do you have something you want to throw out there as something you like about this movie?
Look, let's clarify this. This is not a terrible movie. This isn't a
Right.
disaster. It's not embarrassing. I mean,
Mm.
it's nobody's best work
There are
here.
moments of embarrassment.
Yeah, there are moments of embarrassment, but I'm comparing it to Howard the Duck, right? It
Right.
is a standard piece of action schlock of the time. And whether or not you are endeared uh, to that subgenre, I guess, if you love movies like Cobra or really any of the stuff that Sylvester Stallone was doing around this time, I mean, this might be the movie for you. Who knows? In terms of the stuff that I like about this, thematically, they're onto something here. I was surprised at how seriously they took the character of the Punisher in
Yeah.
terms of let's actually talk about the Punisher. Is what he's doing right? If he's not right, then what can the law do to prevent somebody like Frank Castle from feeling like he has to take the law into his own into his own hands? God, I feel as mumble mouthed as Dolph Lundgren in this movie. Jesus,
Well, we'll certainly get to
we're not
Dolph.
talking about that
Yeah.
yet. We're not talking
We'll
about that
get
yet.
to Dolph. Yeah.
Um, no, thematically, and this is that big barrier for me in the Punisher, where I do think it's a gross idea, like socially. Like I don't want a guy like the Punisher around. I would love to have Spider-Man or Superman, but the Punisher is somebody I want to stay on the page. And this movie really deconstructs him in some interesting manners. I don't think that the execution lives up to a lot of the ideas. We'll get into that. But I was surprised at how thoughtful I found this movie. In many ways, it was more impressive on that front than anything about the action in this movie. I don't know. I mean, first I want to hear if you agree with me on that, and then we can talk about what you really liked about this movie.
Yeah, it's so funny because I had the same thought when I was going through.
Take a
Sorry,
drink,
excuse me.
people.
Excuse me.
We are coming
I will
out with a
never
not that
forgive
bad
you.
drinking game.
I will never forgive you for pointing that out. Um, but no, in all seriousness, when I was watching this movie, I was surprised at how well intentioned it seemed. Nothing about this movie. We talked a lot about movies that have a lot of malice behind it when they're adapting something. And while I don't think they showed malice, I don't think they didn't show malice everywhere. I think there was a lot of things about the source material, which we'll get to, that they just decided that can stay there. But the movie as a whole, the story of the film felt really well intentioned. There was a lot of heart to it. It was very strange for me to go into a Punisher film and be like, "Wow, this overwhelmingly this feels like the most positive film of the three. It feels like the most well-intentioned movie of the three as far as the significance of their story goes." And for that, I have to give them props. It's not something I would have put down for something I liked about the movie. It's just something I noticed and took in and was like, "Wow, okay, this is where we're going with this." Um, I'm actually gonna say the action is the first thing that I want to talk about because and I want to bring this up too. This movie, this movie's budget was not high. I did some calculations because I like to think of myself as a professional. I'm not. But in doing some calculations as far as like inflation adjustment between this movie and Punisher Warzone, which came out in 2007, this movie was made for $10 million at the time that it came out in '89, which would have been roughly like $17 million in 2008. Man, would it be great for inflation to still kind of be that low over that much time? But interestingly, Punisher Warzone was made for like $33 million, and neither movie feels cheap. But this movie surprisingly doesn't feel cheap. It does feel a little bit like a high-end TV movie. I think I can compare it a lot budget wise, like how it looks and feels to the It miniseries, which came out the next year. It feels like from a budget standpoint that they had a very similar amounts to work with. Some of the shot composition was weirdly similar as well, which kind of weirded me out a little bit. I got weird vibes from some of that. Um, but they definitely did not spare any expenses when it came to the action of the movie. They did everything they could to pack this thing. Every time they put action on the screen, they wanted it to feel like it was a Canon movie, which it was very clear to me because Canon films are known for their absolute chaos, and this movie does have a decent amount of it. There's even one scene that is hilarious to me where he goes into this. I don't know if you even noted this, but the bad guys have this like casino or something in
Hmm.
town where
Oh,
there's
sure.
girls dancing and all this stuff, and Punisher drops through the through the glass ceiling of this place,
Like Batman
like
in
Batman.
'89 Batman,
Yes, like
there's a
Batman in
shot
'89.
exactly like it.
It's almost exact. And he begins unloading his machine gun, and I swear to you, it is the longest I've ever seen anybody shoot in any movie. There's a movie that makes fun of that called Hot Shots Part 2. It's the second Hot Shots movie starring Charlie Sheen, a parody where they're making fun of Rambo. He shoots longer in this movie than the parody of Rambo does in a parody movie. It was insane. It went on for like 3 full minutes of shooting this
Did it
machine
go on
gun.
for 3 minutes? I guess I checked out after minute one.
Dude, it went on for so long. I could not believe how long this was happening for. That being said, it's one of the examples of just the fun that the action brings to the movie. It does not ever say the action lacks. I don't see any review that says this movie lacks in action because it doesn't. It makes it a very fun experience when you get to those scenes, in my opinion.
See, I don't know if I'm there. I don't think all the action falls flat. I think the action is where the tone really struggles because I think they are trying to do something a little bit more serious or at the very least more dramatic with the Punisher character. But
Yeah.
then you have this really wacky stuff straight out of a canon movie. You know, you have ninjas sliding down on these like wee kind of like funhouse slides, shooting their machine guns at him.
Story significance is something way different for me when I'm watching this. When I'm watching this, I had to separate those things because you're right. It we're gonna get to the bad section. We're gonna talk about some of that stuff, but there is a lot that really undermines the good heart that this movie tries to have and the story that it tries to tell.
I mean, I hear what you're
And
saying, and I
yeah,
think there
right,
is going to be a lot of people who will enjoy this movie on those grounds more than
right,
whatever themes they're trying to explore. I think for a lot of people, the themes might be an afterthought. I mean,
yeah.
this is going to have more success as a guilty pleasure movie than as a real Punisher movie. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, like this is like a get drunk with your friends and get some pizza and wings kind of
I'm
movie.
getting drunk right now, so
Hey,
I
cheers,
can't judge
brother.
anybody. But look, I want to try to give as many sincere compliments as I can before I start doing the
Tearing this to
snarky,
shreds.
not even tearing this to shreds. You
No,
know
I
what I
know what
mean?
you're saying.
The so bad it's good line of praise, which I'm just getting really tired of in discourse nowadays. Like I can ironically enjoy something, but I don't think it's worth dwelling on that in a discussion. Like there's nothing very constructive about that to me.
Man, I just think it's overused. Like, whatever happened to just having a guilty pleasure? Whatever happened to just thinking a movie's good if people think it's bad? You know, I just don't get it.
Yeah. Look, a big pro that I have for this movie, and this surprised me, I just aside from one actor that we'll get to, I found the cast to be surprisingly excellent. There is an Oscar winner in this movie. His name is Louis Gossett Jr. He had won Best Supporting Actor for An Officer and a Gentleman, and has, he's had a great career as a character actor. Who doesn't like Louis Gossett Jr.? He has the best character in the movie. He has the best scenes. I think a lot of the themes that I sort of latched onto really came through with his character, because he plays a by the book cop who has a lot of sympathy for Frank Castle, having been his former partner, but is also horrified at what Frank Castle has become. And that dichotomy is something that should have really been the heart of this movie. But it ends up more feeling like, hey, we really want Louis Gossett Jr. What can we give him to do? Right. So it's a double-edged sword. I think they had a great idea with the character, but it's not even just him. I really liked the villain. Actually, we have a couple of villains, but the main woman, the head of this Yakuza clan, I mean, I don't know. I think some people might make fun of her for like how over the top oriental they go with her character. Like she's wearing the kind of geisha makeup at the end. I don't know if they need
She,
that.
they went a little stereotype.
They did, but I thought the actress had a commanding presence.
I thought so too.
I thought she was creepy and seductive at the same time. A really
Oh.
weird. Okay, I don't know if I'm revealing something about myself, but
Hey,
let's go. Come
it
on.
is what it is.
I'm the editor. I know what stays in, and I know what gets out. So
That better stay in right there. Oh man, I'll say this. You know, you talk about the cast. I think first off, before I get into that conversation, the real tragedy of Louis Gossett Jr. is the fact that his number one most popular movie on Letterboxd is Jaws 3D. But
which
you know,
he's not bad
honestly,
in. Okay, he's not
which
he's not bad in that.
do you want to take a guess on what Jaws 3D has on Letterboxd if you had to guess out of 5?
2.3.
1.8. I will say though that I do agree that Louis Gossett Jr. is the best part of this movie. By far, he is a tremendous character in this compared to everybody else.
And he's
And
original to this movie, not from the comics.
yes, for me, he was the thing that made this an easier watch. Because outside of the action, there were parts where I was really kind of thinking like, oh man, like I watched the first 30 minutes of this and then I just took a break for a day and then I watched the rest of it. So that kind of shows you where where my head was at there. But yeah, he was the best part of this, and I'm really surprised they landed him. I know he's done some bad movies over time, but this didn't seem like one that had a lot of money to nail him. So
I don't know. I
um,
mean, you said they had $10 million
yeah,
in
10 million budget.
1989. That is enough money to get Louis Gossett Jr. for a couple days. He's not
He
in the
throws a
movie
lot.
very much.
He throws a lot in when he's there, and I mean
Oh,
he
he
gives it his
does.
all. Yeah,
He does. I mean, he's a Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon type. I mean, he can
yeah.
take a character with a few scenes, very little screen time, and get the most out of it. He's a pro. And I really don't have anything bad to say about the acting outside of, again, one performer who we'll get to, and who for now will remain anonymous.
I think the issue that I had with some of the acting is as you got to the characters that had dialogue but were not major characters, you sort of started to see like the Canon Films effect. You know, where the Canon Films usually has like one or two people that are like pretty competent, and then everybody else is like they're not even TV or soap actors. They are just like it's like so the director's friend Timmy, and he's just like, "Hey man, can you come on set? I'll pay you in pizza." And he's like, "Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know,
yeah, I'll
man.
do
I
it."
don't think anybody stood out to me as being that bad. I mean, to be,
The Japanese henchman definitely stood out as that bad to me.
I think it is unfortunate the way this movie leaned into stereotypes. I don't even want to blame the
Yeah.
actors there. It's
I
just
guess that's fair because like a lot of it was just them speaking in just the most stereotypical accents ever. I will say so I want to see if you caught this. I don't even know if you're going to find this funny. But there's this scene where there's the scene where the Punisher breaks into this warehouse, right? And there's these no, it was in the building. It was in the building at the end of the movie, where the final battle's kind of happening. You know, there's the high rise, right? And the Punisher takes out this dude, and then his buddy walks back into the room, and he goes, "Hey man, I got the pizza," and he's all excited, and then he just gets absolutely fucking wrecked by the
he
Punisher.
gets
And it was
wasted.
one of the funniest. I don't know if it was intentional or not. I laughed so unbelievably hard at that scene because I did not see it coming. This movie was humorless up until this point. Intentional humor. I think there was a lot of unintentional
I'm going to
humor.
disagree with you there. Wait, wait, wait,
Okay.
wait, 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 wait. You cannot call this movie humorless. Okay, that brings me to my next point.
Oh, you're
Brings
gonna
me
say
to
it
my
was a
next
funny
point.
movie. Okay.
Specifically, I'm going to say, how did I word this? I'm going to say drunk thespian sidekick greater than microchip.
Ooh.
Greater than microchip. Okay, bring this guy back. I don't need microchip around. I need this drunk fuck who hangs around with the Punisher and only speaks in rhyme.
Now, I will say I can I went a little far saying humorless because I did laugh at a lot of his scenes. It's just he's one of those actors too that just has the right facials for a role like this. Like he just makes the right facial expressions, he makes the right body movements, he makes the right hand gestures. I might go back on Louis Gossett being the number one in this movie for me because this guy would be such a close second that he might be they might be at the same level. I don't know. Um, yeah, man, I will relent to that 100%. He was the thing that besides Louis Gossett was making this movie more enjoyable every time he was there.
Also,
And I
just
didn't
think
expect that from him. Like we're
no.
introduced to him in this ridiculously silly scene where the Punisher has a little remote control car that he brings booze to this guy on this tiny remote control truck and then drives it at the sight of a 6 foot something Dolph Lundgren with jet black hair in a leather coat driving a little RC car was one of the most unintentionally hilarious things I have ever seen
But
in my
that was
entire life.
intentionally hilarious. Why are
Was
you
it
calling?
though?
Yes.
You
Okay.
think you think it was supposed to be funny that Dolph was
Look,
using one of these?
we had this conversation about another movie in this franchise because can we be honest and say that we don't necessarily record all of these linearly? That
Oh
we
no, breaking the fourth wall. Oh shit.
that's not breaking the fourth wall. I don't know what wall I broke.
Obliterated.
Yeah, but
Sorry, guys.
look, there is a movie. I don't know if I'll keep that in either, but I don't think it's a spoiler to say that they go for a very similar thing in Punisher Warzone of Ultra Camp, like, like just to the point of just like you have to laugh at it. That's the only response.
I hope that's what they were going for because if it was, it definitely got that reaction out of me. And I have a feeling, whether that we'll see. I have a feeling that we're gonna go to war in that episode. I don't know. I just have this weird feeling.
You don't know because we haven't recorded that episode yet.
But what I will say is, I agree with everything you said there. I don't know about the campiness because this it's weird, man. Like movies from the '80s are so interesting to me. There's so many movies that are so unintentionally hilarious. Miami Connection, basically everything that's been on Best of the Worst. So
This is
it's
the closest to
funny.
being best of the worst that our show has gotten.
It really has because you. That's the thing, right? This is our blurred lines episode. I don't know what's intentional and what's unintentional about this movie.
That's not blurred lines. Oh no.
The lines are blurred.
Are we going to get
Okay.
sued by the Marvin Gaye estate? I mean, what's going to happen now? Are we going to survive
Yes.
this? Okay.
No, 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 no. The show's dead. Um, it's
Yeah,
behind a paywall. Fuck them.
that might as well.
But what else you got in the good? Anything else you wanted to highlight?
Yes, looking over my notes. Okay, that's not good.
Ha,
That's
note
not
taker,
good.
nerd. I'm just kidding. I literally take. I'm the only
Um,
one that usually takes notes. So.
Nice denim jacket, bro. I wrote, referring to our
Oh yeah, yeah.
villain's wardrobe choice in the third act as he goes to save his son. Just gotta you gotta admire somebody who can rock a denim jacket. No,
Hey,
I'm doing that thing, right? I'm
one half
getting
a Canadian tuxedo. You know what I mean?
so when you look at the plot of this movie, it's surprisingly like this is a better plot than most of these stupid ass vigilante movies had. I mean, most movies are as basic as a revenge movie. A movie that comes after this film, uh, you know, another adaptation of this character that we're going to talk about,
All
I
right,
think
I
could make use
already.
of that. No,
Yeah.
no, no. I'm talking about the 2004 version, right? Where people
Oh.
look at that and say, that's just a generic revenge movie.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And this movie actually comes up with a whole plot that tests the Punisher's values. I found that fascinating. He has to save the children of the very people that he's sworn to kill. And that is just the kind of ethical conundrum that I did not think we were going to get out of this movie. I didn't think that they would try to attempt anything like it. Uh, I would dare use the word inspired. It, like anything nice I had to say about the screenplay, revolves around this choice because, not to spoil things, but a big problem that I have with Punisher Warzone, right, is that I think it is very like indulgent the uh, in the grossness of the Punisher idea. I
In the
think that's
Punisherisms.
the Punisherism, right? So this movie actually, in an era where it would have been totally acceptable to make a movie that is just glorifying vigilantism and glorifying violence. And I don't mean in the Nancy Reagan way, right? Glorifying violence. I mean, like you look at Sylvester Stallone's Cobra, which has scenes dedicated to it to just tell you that the idea of civic rights are dumb. That is the thesis of that movie. And this movie goes out of its way to, it's still a Punisher movie and it still comes with all of those conventions, but it actually asks questions. It doesn't just fall into this fascist ideology, or at least not without some reservation.
Well, it's funny because it's interesting because because when I when I started this movie, I was confident I was going to get Samurai Cop in the form of Punisher, and
Do get samurais.
Samurai Cop being a movie that I love, by the way, especially Samurai Cop 2, but mostly Samurai Cop 1. I thought we were going to get a lot of just ridiculous concepts, a lot of awful, awful, awful lines from every character, a lot of so bad it's hilarious stuff. And to see the movie take the story direction that it did, the fact that you use the words moral conundrum in a movie that
That has ninjas
feels so
sliding
much
down on a funhouse slide.
that
Yeah.
this takes like so much from canon, so much from movies like that. The fact that you say that and that I'm not like laughing at you and shaking my head, I'm
Which you
agreeing
probably
with
should
you.
be. You
No, I'm
probably
agreeing with you because
yeah.
it's true. The fact that they decided to take this direction, it shows an effort that movies like this, movies set up in this way, movies that feature some of the things that are in this movie don't normally take. So you have to commend that. It's interesting that they took that direction.
Yeah. Now,
So yes,
does that make for an entertaining movie? We'll see. I should ask though, do you have anything to contribute to this section?
I only have this to say. Let's go to the bad.
Wow.
Well, see, but here's the thing: you took a lot of the things that I liked about this movie, and I was in agreement with you on basically everything else that you said, other than the point that I brought up with the action. So I really
I
don't
guess
have
it's the only
anything else
point.
that I'm gonna, yeah, pull in.
That's
I mean,
that's the only thing that we even like didn't necessarily fully agree on either. So
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, and everything else that you said, I agreed with. And there's again, this is a very short movie, so it's not like you can just pull a million things out of it and say, "Oh, I
yeah.
love this, I love that." So
Now, even though this is a short movie, it took me so many tries to get through this. I don't know. I don't know if it was me or the movie. I mean, I've had a long week. I'll put it that way. So I don't know if I just wasn't in the mood and never found the right mood, but I could not get into the movie. And I'm going to try to be specific. I'm going to try to justify that. It might just be a preference thing. I'm not a huge fan of this era of action movie. I've been on
hmm,
record with that before.
yeah.
The cheese tastic, Death Wish 3 type of movie is just not for me, right? Even when I'm thinking about so bad it's good entertainment, I would rather do like a schlocky monster movie or something like that.
You're not like a schlocky action guy. You're not like you don't have a copy of Out for Justice on your movie shelf, do you?
Do you?
100%. Yeah, I have Out for
Okay.
Justice.
Yeah, we're very different people.
Yeah.
I no, the schlocky movies that I have like Wizard of Gore, right, on
Okay,
Arrow
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Video,
Of
which
course.
is a that's a movie infinitely worse than this, but infinitely more watchable for whatever reason.
I got a little bit of those on my shelf too.
Yeah,
Those are fun too, yeah.
yeah, I have room in my heart for these types of movies.
Of course.
So I think if I'm going to start pointing to things that made it a hard watch for me, I think an imbalanced tone might be the first thing I point to, because there is a struggle with some of the themes they are trying to explore with uh, them also pandering, I think, to the conventions of the time, right? One liners, we have one liners abound.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we have sequences that are there not because of any logical necessity, but just to showcase violence. The Punisher shooting up that casino for 3 minutes adds nothing. You could take that fucking thing out. And
I
other
would laugh a
than
little less, but
and maybe that works for you. I don't laugh at those scenes. I just get bored. And I think this movie has way too much stuff like that in it. But tell me, I think you had a similar experience to me. So what do you think the problem is?
it's hard to say. You know, I watched this in two sittings. I think I stopped at exactly 36 minutes when I started it the first time. I picked it up the next day, and it was definitely me. Like, there's, I just have a tendency to get scatterbrained, and I didn't want to give a movie that we're gonna watch for the show the lack of attention that I would give a movie when my brain is acting that way. So I just took some time to really just step away from it, came back to it. Um, I think this is a movie that you have to be A in the right mindset for, and B you have to already enjoy movies that contain a lot of the ridiculous shit that's in this. You know, what you just described is a love more for the schlocky side of horror and not for action. And hey, that's completely valid. I'm a big fan of a ridiculous horror movie that just makes no sense. Give me that movie about werewolves versus bikers. Give me everything that you can give me of those just ridiculous movies. The Trick or Treat movie from the 80s. That's ridiculous. Give
And
me
that's
that all
getting a
day.
re-release. That's getting a
Yeah, it's getting a
Blu-ray
4K.
release.
It's getting a 4K release, dude. That's
So somebody
insane.
agrees with you.
Yeah. Oh no, a huge cult following for that. But see, that's the thing, right? It's interesting to see those two sides because action and horror are very similar in that way. Like action, sci-fi, and horror, you see a lot of reevaluation of these terrible, terrible movies that people just have a ton of fun with later on. But you don't see that as much with like action movies, or I'm sorry, comedy movies, romance movies, movies that are actually bad when they're bad. It's hard to get enjoyment out of those movies because it's the schlock that makes these so fun, or the ridiculous low budget nature of some of these sci-fi movies. Um, that's what I think the fun brought to this movie for me, and why the second time that, or the, when I picked this movie back up, it really worked for me. But I think this movie does suffer in the pacing department. I think this movie's paced very poorly. Um, I thought I thought this movie would go one direction, and as I'm watching it, like that's where they're going, but the way they're getting there, the way they're getting to the destination that I thought they were going to was very strange. And then they get somewhere where I didn't expect. I didn't expect Frank Castle to team up with the mobster at the end of the movie. But
Which
as soon
was
as
an
I did,
interesting twist,
it
right?
was an interesting twist. But as soon as they did, I knew exactly how it was going to end.
Oh,
And
sure.
so, I mean, it was you could see it coming a mile away. So when you watch this, the pacing is just very strange. The way that they space out their scenes is very weird, and what they give you in between of the action sequences, or the good story beats, when the movie, I like to say, settles down, they're not giving you anything. There's no substance there. So it throws off the flow of the movie completely because you're invested only in the parts. That's why I get why people call this a turn your brain off movie, and why some people are probably like laughing at you for and laughing at us for saying things about theme and about story in a movie that's really just kind of like a popcorn film, to a lot of people. But I don't know, man. Do you have the same issue with like the pacing and the way that this movie kind of progresses? Is that
I
is
think
that kind of what contributed it for
I
you?
actually think this movie has a decent structure. Like if you lay the movie out on paper, or if I read the script even, I think it works a lot better. But there's a problem with the direction of this movie. I mean, I'm talking the construction of this movie from the director, whose work I'm not familiar with. The thing is, man, see what I mean? Take a drink, everybody. I don't know what other word to use than awkward. I think moments that were meant to be very dramatic don't land very well for me. Take the finale of this movie, which on paper is a pretty dramatic, pretty heavy scene. The Punisher, after helping a mobster rescue his kid, has to kill this mobster, pretty much out of self defense.
Yeah, I'd
And
say so.
it would it should be like a solid moment, but the way it was staged and filmed, it was like not working for me. It looks like this mobster was shot under his armpit, like he reaches under, like right under his armpit, and
Yeah.
that's where he was shot. And for some reason, to me, I was just thinking, like, man, that is some bad BO. Like, I couldn't take that moment seriously. Even though I felt like a dick, I thought it represented something very critical for the movie for what it was going for. I do think the direction fails this movie in a lot of ways. It's this rare case where the writing was better than the direction, in my opinion, but the direction is really important. That's the person who's going to bring your story to life. And I think the director probably thought he was making a dumber movie than he really was.
I think so. He's much better known as a film editor than he is a director. He only has
Interesting.
one other directing credit to his name, which is Dead Heat, which is another schlocky action film. But editing, the dude edited Terminator 2, Terminator, X-Men Last Stand, Starship Troopers, Halloween 2, True Lies, Commando, all these movies. Super Mario Brothers. He edited Super Mario Brothers, and a bunch of other films. So, and the Hollow Man. He edited Hollow Man, which, I mean, he's this guy's like ingrained in our show. He edited the Wolf Man. Dude, this guy is like, he was meant to be on this show. This is why this movie ended up here. He was meant to appear right here. Um, but I will agree with you. I think his direction fails in this movie in places that really needed to be solid. If it doesn't feel silly, it just doesn't land. Um, there's this moment that I really thought could have had a lot of weight to it.
Hmm.
It's the last time that Frank Castle is seen in the movie, and he's just killed this kid's father. Which, by the way, why would they do the reach under the armpit thing when they could have just put a hole in the jacket and put some blood on it? That would have been much more effective to
Or
show that
shoot him
he's
in
been
the
shot in the side.
head. I was so annoyed by that decision. They are trying to play it dramatic, like, oh, he doesn't realize he's been shot. It felt like a cartoon. It felt like
It did.
Wile E. Coyote realized
Yes.
that there was no ground under him before he falls. You know what I mean?
Right. It was a bit ridiculous. But right after that, there's this like I don't want to call it an emotional scene where the kid is like gonna shoot the Punisher and the Punisher like gets down on his knee. I actually thought that was pretty well executed for the most part. Through that, like the kid starts crying and he's got this gun to the Punisher's head,
The
and the
kid
Punisher's
actor is
like,
good.
yeah, he's really good, and Dolph Lundgren, in one of the better line deliveries I think he has in this movie, is says something about how pulling the trigger will save him from what he might become later or something.
Which
And
doesn't make any sense
yeah,
because
I don't.
killing the
Yeah,
Punisher will just make him more of what his father was, right?
but so he says something like that, and the gun's to his head, and the kid like gets really sad, and then he with nothing left, the kid puts the gun down and like sinks into the chest of the guy who just killed his father, knowing that a lot of the things the Punisher said about his dad are right, but you know that was his dad, and so there's this like really heavy moment, and then the Punisher stands up and he walks to the door and he turns around and he goes, "You're a good kid. Become a good man, or I'll be waiting for you." And then he
But
leaves. And that's the last thing we see from the character. Why would you do that?
what's your problem with that, though? I
It
thought that
was
was like a
so
good.
no, man. I thought it was it the way that the shot was framed, the way Dolph delivered it, the way
Well,
that
the
the
way
I
Dolph delivered it, we're gonna get into that
we're gonna
later.
get
You know what I
there,
mean?
but everything about that scene just felt silly to me. It's like you just capped the exclamation point. You were trying to draw an exclamation point, and you just somehow fucked it up. How do you fuck up an exclamation point on a scene that was solid up until that point?
I don't know. I mean,
It
look,
didn't
I
work
thought
for
it
me.
was look, and that's a subjective thing, right? I mean,
Right.
like I said, the direction of this movie is wonky. I think you had a similar experience there. I think for me, that
Yeah.
moment really worked where he said, "You're a good kid, grow up to be a good man." Like it almost felt like the Punisher was pleading for this kid to break the cycle. Like that's what I took away from it.
I didn't hate the idea. I just thought everything about the execution of it just failed.
I don't think I'm really vying for the execution so much as I am like, this really was how this movie should have ended.
I'll agree with that. I mean, I think if they could have done if they could have done it better, it would have been a really great ending. But
It could
I
have been
don't
a
know
great ending.
because then he kind of goes out on the building and does like the cheesy '80s yell for the character even though they're gone. Um,
But it's Louis Gossett Jr., so it
oh, he does
works.
it well. It's just I don't I'm that's the part that I can stop understanding. I that's the part where I kind of cut it off where I'm just like, that's a level of cheese that's only good in a movie that doesn't have anything else good about it besides the schlock and the cheesy nature of it. And I don't know, it didn't work for me. I get it why it would, because he does do it well. I don't know. Those scenes are always silly to me. I'm not supposed to laugh at it. I don't know. And I was.
I didn't laugh at it, but as you talk about it, I'm like, yeah, that really was a cliche back then, wasn't it? But that's sort of how good Louis Gossett Jr. is that I'm not thinking about that. I'm just
That's
like very
fair.
involved with his performance and his
It's very
character.
fair.
He's very, I mean, the relationship he has with Frank Castle is tragic. It's the most tragic thing about the movie. I mean, imagine watching your friend not only slip away from you, but become something that you hate. I mean, Louis Gossett Jr. is a cop that actually believes in the law. And let's remove this from anybody's opinions about real life law enforcement.
I am the law.
I feel like us recording this episode is me atoning for the sin of saying that Dolph Lundgren should have been Judge Dredd. Oh boy.
Suck it, Gabe. No, no, I like. Yeah, I'll just throw it back to you there. Please continue. I thought I had something to add. I don't got anything to say.
I
Oh
mean,
God.
look, we I think agree with the audience on a lot of their criticisms. So I
Oh
think
yeah,
we can move to the ugly.
I
I
think it's a
just
good time.
say, yeah, that I think if this movie had a different director and a different lead actor, it could have actually turned out quite well, at least for the time.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think
Agreed.
literally, if you take this script and get different people attached, it would have been so different, which is not something I can say about the Captain America movie or Howard the Duck. Like, this is a rare case where, like, the screenwriters, for whatever reason, I think put in more effort than was needed. Maybe they really cared about the Punisher character. I see genuine enthusiasm about the Punisher character from
Um,
a screenwriting perspective.
I see. Well, getting into the audience complaints here, I see the passion for the character that they wrote to be the Punisher in this movie, but I don't see a lot of passion in the things that the audience would want out of a Punisher character, which
Okay,
is just staying true to the source material.
let's
Um,
break this down.
I know you're gonna have an opinion on this, and I'll have a. I'll
It's my
actually have a
job to have
surprise.
an
I'll
opinion on
right,
this.
and I'll actually have a surprising opinion myself. So I'd like to hear yours first. Where are you leaning on this?
I wanted
Inform
to
the people.
no, I wanted to ask a question. How
Oh,
different is this version of Frank Castle really? I mean, let's break it down. In the comics, Frank Castle is some sort of ex-army. Typically he's with the Marines or some special forces, Black Ops maybe, whose family is killed after witnessing some kind of like
a mob hit. Yeah,
a mob hit in
yeah.
Central Park, which to me is just like, I know it's a comic book man, it's comic books, but man, like the idea that gangsters would conduct a mob hit in Central Park. Oh God. So this Frank Castle was a police officer. I can't remember what his rank was. And he was taking down one of the top dogs in the mob world. And this mobster retaliated by trying to kill Frank and accidentally killed his whole family.
Yeah.
Frank becomes the Punisher, and from that point on, the only difference with the comics to me is that he doesn't have a skull on his chest, which we haven't even addressed yet. But that's where comic book movies were, right? Like, even the idea of putting a skull on his chest, I guess, would have felt too much like a comic book, would have felt too silly for the people making this movie. I've tried to figure out the reason behind this, and there are some like kind of there are different versions, there are different rumors. I don't know the official story, but to me this is very much about the fact that people were so embarrassed to be making a comic book movie that they didn't even want to give him his comic book costume. He didn't have a costume, he had a skull logo. Tell me what is more cringy about having a skull logo versus riding around on a motorcycle with a leather jacket and fake stubble.
We didn't even get to the fake stubble. We'll get there. We'll get there. Um,
Audience, I promise you will get there. Just hang
well,
in there.
this it's hard to have this conversation without talking about the man himself, but I think most of the issue that the audience has is that is that backstory part because in Punisher '04, people do have a problem with the fact that they change it. And they definitely have a problem with the setting of the movie in Punisher '04. But the one thing that they can say about it is that at least if they change it, it's similar enough. And I don't know that in this movie it is similar enough. Like it doesn't have any. It doesn't feel like it has any weight to it because of the way that it's presented to us in the audience. That is going to be a flaw that I have in the movie that I didn't even put in the bad. I didn't even think about. Is that I know we're at a point in the story where that's not supposed to matter. We know what happened already. We know his family got killed. We know that's why he's the Punisher. We know his backstory with, being a cop that wanted to learn from this legendary washed up cop who, and then, wanting to learn from him, change that guy's life. And then Frank goes off the deep end and now they're both in turmoil. I get that part, and that was well executed. But we're supposed to feel the gravity of this man losing his family, and I just don't feel it in this. In both other movies, I feel the gravity of the situation that happened, and I think this could easily be compared to the Punisher Warzone, which
Mhm.
also did it in a retrospective way. It doesn't show it happening, but I think that movie, even though I'm sure you're not a huge fan of that movie. Wink, wink. Um, I can ask you: is that something you can at least agree with? Do you think that movie did a better job of creating weight and feeling behind Frank losing his family better than this film did?
I agree to the extent that I think that one performance is far better at handling that.
That's another key factor. See, that's why it's hard to talk about the issues, because let's be real. Let's just address it,
So
because I think
address it.
this is a point where we really need to get in and do this, and we'll end kind of anticlimactically after talking about this. But we have to talk about Dolph, because we can't really talk about how people feel about the Punisher in this movie without talking about shit with Dolph.
This is what
um
we've been building up to. This
it's
is the, not the epilogue, this is the climax, right? We have to
Yeah.
talk about Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher. It is maybe not the most infamous casting in comic book movie history, because we've had some doozies
Oh boy,
recently.
have we.
I mean, I don't think he's like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor levels of miscast, but
No.
he sort of was like, the number on him was just, can you believe that they got this guy to play Frank Castle? It was just something that seemed laughable on paper, even more laughable when you see the movie. Here's where I come at this. I liked Dolph Lundgren a lot as an actor. In fact, I think if I had been around in the 80s and you told me that Dolph Lundgren was going to play the Punisher, I think I would have been curious. I don't think I would have been sold, but curious. I would have given him a chance, and I would have been very disappointed with the results. But he's Ivan Drago, and he's gone on to have a career playing other stone cold badasses. And let me say this: he's a badass, but he doesn't have a bad ass, if you know what I mean.
I said this movie was not void of embarrassment. That's where it is.
Look,
It's one
give
of
the
those
ladies
moments.
something to look at too, okay? And some of the men and the whoever. If you
And
like
whoever wants to look at it,
if
yeah.
you like any version of guy ass, I think you'll be impressed with Dolph's ass. His ass
Is this
isn't the
the
problem.
how many movies have we had so far that has man ass? This and Hollow Man are the two that are
And
coming to
Hulk.
mind. And
And
Hulk,
Hulk.
and Hulk. Hulk with a hint of with a hint of something else.
With the
According to my
whispers of a
co-host,
penis.
that's still gonna be a T-shirt. Um,
No, it's not.
but
I dare you to put that on a t-shirt.
you should not have said you dare me. I will put
I
that
dare
on
you
our
to walk
website
around in
first.
public with that t-shirt.
Oh no, I'm just gonna send it to you.
Yeah, I thought so.
But no, honestly, Dolph, on paper, it's funny because I don't have any drink left, man. I can't do it.
Oh, I do.
I'm just gonna gulp. But I do mean it in this case, because on paper he does seem like somebody who would be a decent version of the 80s Punisher. I mean, think about it. He's got the size. Once he dyed his hair, I mean, his look's not far off, but
The
but
fake
there's so
stubble
much
is
about
really
him.
egregious,
That's
man.
the thing, man. There's so much about him that still doesn't work, and the fact that they have to paint stubble on his face, because
But why does he
apparently the
need
guy can't.
stubble? Like, the Punisher in the comics never has stubble.
On the occasion, he's got a little something, but
That's not the
it's
iconic version of the
right. It's
character.
not.
That's not his image.
My thing is this: if they're trying to capture the essence of the Punisher by putting stubble on his face, because sometimes he has stubble on his face, then put the effing skull on his shirt. It's not that hard. If you think that's too silly in a movie with fucking ninjas, then you are out of your damn mind. Put the skull on his shirt. That's gonna be a huge chunk taken out. And by the way, that's not even something that bothers me that bad. Do I love the fact that it's not there? No. But does it take away from the quality of a movie? No. I've said it many times. If you want to make an adaptation and you want to do it different, stand on your own 2 feet and I will respect the hell out of you for it, like I did with Mario Brothers, like I did with several other movies that we either talked about in private or on this show. But they didn't do that here. And most of it comes down to Dolph's acting, his delivery of lines. I don't think he's a bad actor. I just don't think he was ready for this.
He was not ready to carry a movie that required an American accent. I think it's the accent, really. I was studying his physicality, and it's not stellar. It's not something I would have loved, but it's not the problem. His line deliveries are just crippled by the fact that he is trying to figure out this accent. And he takes what should be really funny lines and kind of sucks the life out of them. That's something I wanted to bring up. I think the Punisher has a number of really memorable lines in this movie, like in a good way. Louis Gossett Jr. says, "Man, you've killed 125 people in 5 years. What do you call that?" The Punisher says, "A work in progress." You can't tell me that's
Well,
not a
he
great.
it's a great line if it wasn't delivered like this. A work in progress.
And we have to talk about the Sylvester Stallone of it all. We have to talk about the fact that he must have been told by somebody to act, look, and just act like Sylvester Stallone as much as possible.
I want to bring something up. And you're not I don't think you'll know what I'm referencing here, but anybody who's listening to this, if you don't know what I'm referencing, please go find it. I don't know the exact name, but there is a Saturday Night Live sketch in which a character plays a parody of Cobra. And I'll be damned if the voice isn't exactly what we get from Dolph Lundgren here. And by the way, the whole joke of the sketch is that this guy is like 4 foot fucking two, and he's like walking around like, "Hey bub, don't mess with my girl." That's everything that happens with Dolph in this movie. There are some lines in this movie that are delivered so poorly. I would have looked to The Room for a better line delivery. Not from Tommy Wiseau. Maybe from Greg.
Greg was trying in that movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's leave Greg out
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah. But yeah,
It's tragic. To me, it's tragic. To
it no, it
me,
is. It
it's
is.
like this kind of killed his career in a way. He never got to lead a movie after this in Masters of Universe or Masters of the
He
Universe, whatever.
Yeah, he never got to lead. He did get to co-lead Universal Soldier.
Where he plays the antagonist, and
Yes.
I'm on record with loving his performance in that. And he
Which
does an American
yes.
accent in that movie, and it is fine. It doesn't get in the way of his performance at all.
He talks a good amount in later movies as well, several times. Like a lot of his later movies, he's doing his American accent, and I think even the Expendables he is. And you can't hardly tell. Maybe he just had time to master it by then, and had just like that's how he just talks now. By the way, you still have to see Universal Soldier Regeneration. I'm gonna hold you to that. But honestly, like thinking on Dolph's performance in this movie, the only thing that I can say is that the dude was green as fucking goose shit as an actor. He should not have been put in a position to be a leader in a role that had such pivotal delivery of lines because they were well written, but when you put all the weight of it on an actor who's just not ready, it's not gonna happen.
Oh,
and I don't know if he's gonna agree with that or not. I love the guy, he just wasn't ready for this.
I'm sure he's not happy with how this turned out and
I imagine
what it did for his
is.
career. It's funny. Now I'm doing it. It's funny because we're talking about him like he's an amateur. Like he was the villain in Rocky 4. Like he's not
Right.
somebody they got off the street. Like I don't think it's ridiculous to think he could have led a movie because you think of him in Rocky 4 and his lines are not only great on paper, he makes them iconic. I must break you.
See, but it's such a different performance.
It is.
He stood out at this point in time. He stood out as a villain. That's where he stood out. And even as his career went on, he stands out as a villain. That's what he's good at doing. And
Which is
so
really it's interesting, right? Because he is a nice guy in real life, and he's a
he seems
smart
like it.
guy
Oh,
in real
very,
life.
very smart guy. Yeah.
I've always like had this sympathy for Dolph Lundgren. It seems like he's one of those guys that, because of the success of an early movie, has had to work around that, has had to either recalibrate or just given to the persona, when I think he has a lot of talent. And I mean, he could have been a scientist, like, he didn't have to be an actor, but for a lot of people, he's going to be that monosyllabic, kind of like stoic, poor man's Sylvester Stallone. And that is not something he deserves. At the same time, watching him in this movie, it's really hard to defend him. Like, I was inclined to like Dolph before this, and I still am, but what am I going to say? That I liked his performance, that I could take it seriously? No, I'm not here to lie to y'all. Just the same way I can't say that I enjoyed this movie, despite all of the pros I have for it. I can't say that. Like, it's not like I don't like it in a way that I'm mad at him.
Oh,
I
no, no,
don't
no.
like
Not at
it.
all.
I I'm in, like, I wanted better for him.
I will agree. I will agree. And I think some of, like, if you can get to that point where you appreciate this movie as a, as much as we don't like the argument, as a so bad it's good type thing for his lines, you're gonna
Mhm.
really have a lot of fun with what he's doing. Which I think is gonna be my approach next time I watch this.
But it's so mean. I mean, you're taking
It
somebody's
is.
work and you're just
It
like
is.
laughing at it. For me, that feels almost worse than just saying, "Hey, I don't think he did a good job." And I'm not saying that you don't have the right to get that experience out of it, but
No, absolutely.
a lot of people think that they're doing actors a favor when they say stuff like that, and they're not. I think
I think it's ludicrous to think that you can walk up to any person involved with a movie and say, "Oh, you worked on that? Man, that movie's so bad it's good."
I mean, there are some
What?
examples where, like, I know the guy from Samurai Cop, he did a video with Red Letter Media. Clearly, he's made peace with that movie's legacy, and he maybe even enjoys it.
They made a sequel that was tongue in cheek, that
Right.
played on the fact that the first movie was
Yeah.
terrible, and they made a fake so bad it's good.
And not to insult that guy, but I don't know his career, but Dolph Lundgren is a serious actor. I mean,
Yeah,
he was in big movies before, and he was in big movies after. I thought he was great in Creed 2, right? I mean, that's a movie just from 4 or 5 years ago, and he still got it. This to me is an outlier in his career, but the unfortunate thing is, I think this is actually something that kind of, for people who don't like him or don't take him seriously, this is the movie why. And what I want to tell people is that no, like, he has a lot more to him, both as an actor and a person. And this adaptation, for whatever reason, it just really did a disservice to him
and I
and
do
the
just
Punisher character.
yes, and I do just want to make it clear before we talk about one more thing in the section pre wrap up. This still has a higher rating than Masters of the Universe. So
Well,
on
Masters of the
Letterboxd,
Universe is just something I'm not going to see. So,
I wouldn't be too confident about that.
sir,
No, in all seriousness, we do have one more thing to talk about, which is what I referenced when saying that this would be a little bit on the anticlimactic side. We just have to talk about one final complaint that I saw consistently in reviews here, and that's just that this movie is generic. I don't think there's much to say with that, honestly. It is. It's a generic movie. Either that's going to land for you or it's not. I think in your case, it doesn't seem to have landed with you like it would with somebody who's more of a fan of the
the type
schlocky
of movie
canon
that this is
movies. Yes,
emulating,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we say generic, I think we mean it really blends into uh, a specific type of movie that was being made around this time.
yes.
And for some people, that is going to give them a lot of charm. Like, it's going to be something that makes this movie, I guess, a time capsule. It has so much cliche to it and so much convention to it. I can see somebody going back and watching it for that reason. But if you're not really enamored with these types of movies, you're going to be left with the movie that that could have been better if it escaped the shadow of this whole era of I guess entertainment.
Yeah, as somebody who's been toying with buying a Canon Films T-shirt for several years now, I can say that the generic nature of this movie adds to it for me. I would have had a bad time watching this if it wasn't for that point. So I think that wraps it up for us as far as talking about this movie. The only thing left before we get on our motorcycle with our black leather jackets, slick back hair, and fake stubble. By the way, this beard's been fake the whole show. I just want everybody to know that. I've been painting this on every single show. Um,
And
uh,
you've done a better job than Dolph
yeah,
then.
I know, pretty good. I can even make it move a little bit. But I want to know what your final verdict. Where do you land on this movie as a whole? Where are
Okay.
you going to come down? What do you
I've
think?
been thinking about this, Connor. I've had a
You have?
whole trip to the bathroom to think about this and ponder I did.
Yes.
So the fact of the matter is, this is considered the worst Punisher movie. And in my opinion, and this is going to not agree with you, in my opinion, it is not. It is the worst performance of the Punisher character for sure. The movie surrounding him, it is at the very least, it's like tied. It's like tied for the worst. Um,
Oh boy.
and my God, guys, if you want to hear us really dive into this, just
Stick
listen to
around.
our stick around. I mean,
Stick
specifically
around.
check out our Punisher Warzone episode. That's really what is going on here.
Coming
Uh,
up soon.
it's not the worst Punisher movie to me. In a way, this actually might be the most respectable approach to the character in movie form. I
Hmm.
felt like I had a better understanding of the Punisher character and what he stood for and what he stood against by the end of this movie. That being said, it was not packaged with the right team. The screenplay was not given the right people to do what they were setting out to accomplish. We have direction that's awkward, a lead actor who's hella awkward, and the genuinely good things I have to say about this movie are more sprinkled in than they are really incorporated in a very organic way. That being said, I have nicer things to say about this than some other movies in this. I was going to call it a franchise. It's really not a franchise. It's
Lineage.
yeah, this lineage in the Punisher movie saga.
Oh.
Um, as much as that aggravates my co-host, I have no choice but to say that because I disagree with the consensus, it's not that bad. It is not the worst treatment this movie, or I'm sorry, it's not the worst treatment this character has been given on the silver screen.
Man, anything I say now is gonna seem like it's revenge. All right. Okay. Here's where I'm gonna go with this. This is by no stretch of the imagination a good movie. With that being said, I had a lot more fun with this once I got past the first 30 minutes than I thought I would ever have with this movie. I thought I would enjoy it before diving back in because I thought I had seen it and I thought I remember not hating it. Going into it, though, it was super interesting to see kind of where I landed at the end of it because I had a hard time deciding on a final verdict. There's kind of two ways that I was going to go about it, and I didn't know which way I should go with it until you said your final verdict there, because it helped me kind of place how I feel about this movie. This is a movie I would revisit. This is a movie that I would watch again. This is a movie that I would love to get a group of friends together with maybe I don't know 2 6 packs, some food, and just have a good time. Because this is what that movie is to me. I don't want to take this movie as seriously as I think it deserves to be treated, but I can respect the things that it did to deserve, you know, more of a look at it, like you've given it. I think this is the worst Punisher movie. I think for me, it's actually by far the worst Punisher movie. But I don't think that means nobody should go watch it. I think a 2.6 is a rating that could easily be a movie that's just not very good that you go back to every once in a while and you watch. And 2.6 is almost exactly what I would give this movie. So I'm
Hmm.
going to say that by technicality, in a very passive and non aggressive way, this movie is that bad, but it's a great time and it's a one that I would recommend anybody go watch. I mean, it's
It's a great
free
time.
online, and it's a great time. So yeah, go
Okay,
check this out.
can we add this? If you could track down an HD version of this movie,
Oh God,
knock yourself out, buddy. But if you have to settle for the fucking version on YouTube that me and Connor had to
it's
watch,
so poor.
I didn't
There's
bring the.
even
Yeah,
we didn't even bring up how we had to watch this, by the way, because we had the genius idea of putting this into the show, and knowing that,
we.
mostly me. Um, we, I'll take the heat. Fuck it, dude. I defended Resurrection on this show. I will take any amount of heat that I will get.
No,
Um,
no, no, no. Look, so obviously, if we're doing a Punisher special, it'd be weird to leave this out,
it'd be
right?
weird to leave it out. Yeah.
And in a way, I'm actually glad that we included it because I feel like it is so odd. Not to spoil things for the audience, but all of these movies have different pros and cons, and I think they get different things right. I think you can put these movies together in a way and get your actual great Punisher movie. In a way, I almost think the John Bernthal movie, not movie, he made a show. That's where we are now. We're not going to get new Punisher movies. We're going to get shows. But his take on the character and what they gave him is like it's an approach that has learned from all three of these incarnations.
I do think the audience for the Punisher show have at least the more faithful comic book audience, based on what I've been reading over the course of us potentially revisiting these and talking about them. It's very acclaimed, but there are issues people have with the portrayal of the Punisher. I think if you combine actually all four properties, everything, you take aspects of all of them, you literally have the perfect Punisher property.
I mean, maybe the Punisher is a doomed property. Maybe it was not meant to be put on screen. I don't know because after four tries, you think they would have a consensus pick. I'm sure John Bernthal is the consensus pick actor. Like, if you ask most Punisher fans, who's the best actor to play him?
I don't know.
Really?
We cover a movie in this franchise or in this lineage that has an actor that almost everybody who likes the Punisher says was spot on perfect for the comic version of the
And then you
character.
got weirdos like me who prefer a different actor because he is
Well,
not such a perfect translation.
see, it's going to be interesting to see where these videos go for people. I'm curious by the end of this special where people come out, especially when this does
Hmm.
all make it out to the general public. Obviously, we like to release one of these episodes pretty early in release schedules, probably like I don't know, I think this time we'll like a week out. I don't know for one of them, but the rest of them people are gonna have to wait for. So it's something that I'm very curious to see what the response is, especially if they're able to make it all the way through as a through line. Which I'd recommend, by the way, because like we're awesome, but no, we're not awesome.
We're this is a true saga. Like, I feel like I
I
went on an
believe it. Yeah,
adventure talking about these movies. Like a
emotional,
weird.
spiritual.
I'm a different man.
We came out of this as different people.
I'm a better
Uh,
man.
yes, and you grew to be a good man, so the Punisher is not waiting for you.
Okay,
Um,
just return back to the movie for a second. The fact that the last thing the Punisher says is to like threaten a kid who just watched his father die. This isn't a character I'm endeared to. I'm just saying.
is this really the time to give me a lesson, you fucking asshole? You just shot my dad. Thanks. I got
In
no
the
dad now.
armpit, motherfucker.
You killed my dad via armpit. Okay, let's not turn this into a fucking learning session. All right, bud. You with your drawn on facial hair. That kid probably had more facial hair than Dolph did on this set. It was
Did they
amazing.
like? Could he not grow facial hair? Could he? Because it's like something about this movie, like it is so obviously bad that you start to forget about it, and then you remember how bad it is at some point. Like it
Yeah.
gets normal,
It does.
and then you remember, wait a second, this whole movie, this guy's had fake
Fake
stubble
facial hair.
the entire time. I mean, Groucho Marx is a better fake piece of facial
Oh my
hair
god.
than this movie. And I guess that's the perfect note to end this on. I'm not sure.
Um, I think so. I mean, exact same experience that I had. It just like it started like, oh my god, they really painted on his facial hair, and then it just became an everyday thing for
They
me
had to
that
hire a
this is
makeup
what they did.
artist to do this. Like somebody had to do this every day he was
Oh
on
my
set.
god. It's all right, folks. I know we haven't made this movie sound any more appealing as we've wrapped this up, but I really do recommend that you check this out. Whether you come out on the side that Gabe is on, where this is a movie that is not that bad and maybe isn't even the worst of the three Punisher films, or if you come out on my side where you say, yeah, it's the worst, yeah, it's not great, but it's a fun movie. Or maybe you'll come out on either side and you'll say, all of these suck, this movie sucks, I don't care about you guys, and I hate you.
Look,
I hate me too, so I get it. But but in all seriousness, I want to thank you for tuning into this episode and listening to two ridiculous human beings talk about a ridiculous movie for a ridiculously long period of time.
ridiculous is the word. And let me close out by saying I think you should check this out, not because it's a good movie or because I think the Punisher is a very cinematic character, but because this is a piece of cinematic history. And I think if you want to go back and see the history of Marvel Comics on film, growing pains and all, I think this is a movie worth checking out as a historical document. Entertainment value, I cannot attest to. It took me three tries to watch this thing, but there you have it. I'm glad that I saw it. I'm glad that I finally sat through, finished it, and could log it on Letterboxd. That's
I
all
want
I'll
to say
say about that.
I think it's funny that I came out saying it was that bad, but that I'd rewatch it, and you came out saying that it wasn't that bad, but that you did not
Because
have a
specifically,
pleasurable
Connor,
experience.
specifically, I'm saying it's not the worst Punisher movie, and I think you know my feelings about some of the other Punisher movies, and the audience can get to that when they get to that.
Yeah, I think so. I think for now though, they can head on over to notthatbadpod.com and check out our website. They can see our entire backlog of episodes. They can see links to all of our social media sites, links to our Patreon if you'd like to support us, if you're seeing this in general population of the prison that we've created with this show. It'd be great to check it out. If you want to give us some extra support and throw some dollars at us, you can subscribe at any tier on patreon.com/notthatbad, which you can find on our website, a link on our website under the support us section. But we just appreciate any support, which includes you watching this video. Honestly, just sharing it with your friends could be the biggest difference for making this show make or break. So thank you all for watching and enjoying. Anything else you want to throw in there, Mr. Tice, before we wrap this up, before you wrap this up, as you so eloquently do?
I
Oh
rank
no.
Dolph Lundgren second in the ass ranking of Not That Bad. I was thinking about it. I think Eric Bana is number one, clearly. Dolph is number two, and I'm really sorry, Kevin Bacon, but I gotta put you at number three.
I see what you did there, but I see what you did
Ah,
there. I quit the show. I'm out. I quit the show. Oh God. Oh, we've gone too far. I quit the
what a
show.
good run! What a good run we had.
No, I can't quit the show. We got two more episodes in this special, and then
That
I
we
quit the
definitely
show.
did not record
That we've not
already.
recorded yet. We don't know what's coming, but I have a feeling we're in for a surprise in the third episode.
Okay, guys.
Oh shit.
If you're still watching, I don't know
I
why
can't
you
believe you're
are,
still
but
here. Get out of
then
here.
I guess, yeah. I guess I have to close out.
Fucking go away. Go
right?
home to your families.
Literally, we're done talking about the movie, guys. Take a hint. Okay, to make it official,
Oh shit.
I am Gabe,
I am Connor.
and this is not that bad saying go back to your fucking lives.
Get your lives back, please.
Thanks for subscribing, y'all. Bye.
Bye.